do that. I mean, you didn't expect Mr. Bradley to shoot him, right?
No, sir, I did not expect that.
You also told the doctor your memory is sketchy about what Brandon said, meaning what Mr. Bradley told you just prior to the shooting, right?
Yes, sir.
And you also told Dr. Waldman that you went into the garage. You never said that you and Mr. Bradley went into the garage.
Actually, I believe I did tell Dr. Waldman it was both of us.
You got a chance to review Dr. Waldman's report before, right?
I think I reviewed it months ago.
And then you remember getting an opportunity during your deposition to look over it? Remember when you were deposed?
I don't remember looking at it.
You indicated, I've read the report, and you didn't leave anything out.
Oh, yes, sir.
So are you saying you don't know, you don't remember if you told the doctor that only you went into the garage? Or that you're saying that's not accurate? You told Dr. Waldman that both of you went into the garage.
I believe I told him that both of us were in the garage.
And you would agree that you did say you read through Dr. Waldman's report, right?
Yes, sir.
And you didn't leave anything out, right?
As far as I know.
Dr. Waldman only indicated you went into the garage.
Yes, you may.
I want to just back up for a moment. You would admit that you didn't tell Dr. Waldman that Mr. Bradley said those things about what he would do, and he would have to do anything he could to go back to prison, not to go back.
Why would I admit that? I mean, what are you asking me if I would admit? Like, I don't think I understand.
I'm asking you that you didn't say that to Dr. Waldman. The
I
things
don't-
you've told us in here about statements that Mr. Bradley made, and he didn't want to go back, and he would do whatever he had to do.
I believe I did tell Dr. Waldman. I don't specifically remember what exactly the report says. I'm sorry.
And you don't remember anything you told Dr. Waldman either? You just had a
No.
bad memory?
I do remember most of what I told Dr. Waldman. I don't remember it word for word. Dr. Waldman was taking notes.
Were you not asked this question and given the following response in your deposition? Well, First of all, you remember giving a deposition in January 23rd of this year?
Yes, sir, I do.
And you swore to tell the truth during that deposition, right?
Yes, sir, I do.
And you had an attorney present, not?
I believe so.
Will you not ask this question and give the following response on page 45, starting at line 22? The question, at this point, you don't remember, and you admit you didn't tell Dr. Waldman that Brandon Bradley said those things about he would do whatever he had to do to not go back to prison. Going over to the next page, answer. I don't know if I admitted that. Dr. Waldman was taking notes by hand. It wasn't I was speaking into a microphone and it was recorded or whatever. It's maybe I didn't tell him, or that's something he didn't specifically write down. You don't remember specifically telling Dr. Waldman? I don't remember specifically telling him that, no. Specifically that Brandon Bradley said he would do whatever it took to keep from going back to prison? No, sir, I don't remember. You don't remember specifically, you don't remember the words that Brandon used in the car leading up to the shooting of Deputy Pill. Your answer, no, sir. Remember being asked those questions and giving those responses?
Yes, sir.
Going back to January 15th of this year when you gave your prop, that was in this courtroom.
Yes, sir.
At that point, you had not entered your plea yet, correct?
Yes. No, sir, I didn't enter my plea yet.
And it was kind of up in the air what the judge would do, right? Should you take your plea and what the sentence would be?
Yes, sir.
Remember, you indicated that Mr. Bradley was going to do whatever it is not to go back, including shooting at the officers. And Mr. McMaster asked you, did he say that? And you said, I don't remember his exact words. You telling Mr. McMaster that?
Yes, sir.
You were under oath for that proffer as well, right?
Yes, sir.
Remember during that proffer being asked, do you remember having a conversation with Mr. Bradley when Deputy Pill actually got behind your vehicle? You responded, I just remember freaking out.
Yes, sir.
You would agree, would you not, that what you remember of the events happening on March 6, 2012, you don't know if it's exactly something you've read or something that you've heard?
My answer is the same as before.
The notes that you took that affect your memory?
All of them.
After your interview with the agents, remember Deputy Cook leading you out the sheriff's department and took a patrol car to take you to jail?
I don't have any memory of
Do you
that.
remember that? You think you were still scared at that point?
I couldn't tell you what I was thinking. I have no memory of that event.
Bradley was usually paranoid, was he not?
Yes, sir.
And as of January 23rd, 2014, when you gave your deposition, we fair to say that you didn't remember what you told the police about what Brandon said?
What I told them on January 23rd, or what I told them previously?
Right.
No, sir, I don't remember.
It's been a long time since you were sober during that time period. Fair to say that?
Yes, sir.
And you hadn't seen Mr. Bradley sober for a long time as well.
Yes, sir.
And your deposition on January 23rd, you did admit that you don't know, there are things that you can't remember. You don't know what you do know because you don't know what's things that you've heard or seen, right? Or someone's told you, right?
Okay. Compound question.
Please sustain as to the form of the question.
You can't remember if you know something because you read it, right? You don't know if you know it as a result of reading it.
Then I go to object. Compound question.
One question.
If the witness understands the question, she can answer. Otherwise, I'll ask you to rephrase.
It's the same answer I've given you 2 times now. If I don't exactly remember something, I'm going to tell you I don't exactly remember it, but if it's something I can place, I'll tell you.
Deposition on page 30, we not asked the following question given the following answer. Would that be true now, looking back nearly 2 years, if there are things that you try to remember, and when you do, you can't remember whether it's something you read or something you were told or something you actually saw or heard? Are there things like that still in your mind? Answer, yes, sir.
Object to the approach.
Yes, you may.
as I had asked you before, January 23rd, during your deposition, that you said earlier, swore to tell the truth, right?
Yes, sir.
You were asked the following question, and gave the following response. Page 30, starting at line 8. Question, would that be true, now looking back nearly 2 years, that there are things that you try to remember, and when you do, you can't remember whether it's something you read, or something you were told, or something you actually saw or heard? Are there things like that still in your mind? Answer, yes, sir.
Yes, may I clarify what I'm saying?
That's what,
Judge,
the
I
way
would
you
ask
asked
the
the
witness
question.
be allowed to complete her answer, not be interrupted like that.
Okay, that, we can save that for redirect, overruled.
Do you remember at any point when you were in the car with Mr. Bradley, you screaming at Mr. Bradley? Do you remember anything like that?
Screaming at him, how?
At any time when the two of you are talking back and forth, you notice that there's a deputy behind you. Do you remember if there was any screaming?
When I was asking him not to shoot him? Like that type of screaming? Or any screaming
screaming?
in general?
Were you screaming at that point?
There was that, and then also when he shot the deputy, I screamed to go.
You were screaming.
I'm not sure how loud I was being. I'm sure I was yelling.
That's when the door to the SUV was open. You were screaming.
When the door to the SUV was open, I was screaming.
You tell us when you were screaming. You were there.
I screamed for him to go after he shot the officer. I don't remember if the door was open or closed.
Judge Kaplan, moment.
Yes, you may.
Just got a few more questions for you. I'm almost done. You indicated earlier during a response to a question that Mr. Brown asked you that Mr. Bradley thought Deputy Bill's going to shoot him.
Yes, sir.
And he actually said that to Deputy Bill more than one time. Why are you going to shoot me, right?
Yes, sir.
I think you also said, why are you stopping me, or why did you stop us?
Why did we get pulled over?
And he said that,
I don't remember how many times he said that.
but you said, why are you going to shoot me? At least one time,
Yes, sir.
if not more.
Yes, sir.
Earlier on, Mr. Brown first started asking you questions. Came up that you had a sale of controlled substance and possession of controlled substance that was ending prior to March 6, 2012, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you were facing a total of 20 years in prison for those 2 counts alone, right?
Yes, sir, I was.
And those 2 cases got dismissed when you pled in this case, right?
Yes, sir, they did.
Now, in this case, you were originally charged with first-degree felony murder of a law enforcement officer, right?
Yes, sir, I was.
You were looking at the death penalty, right?
Yes, sir, I was.
You were looking at going to trial, fighting for your life. Let's put it that way.
Yes, sir, I was.
You were also charged with robbery, right?
Robbery without a firearm.
Right. You could have gotten 15 years in prison for that alone, right?
Yes, sir.
You were charged with burglary of a dwelling, right?
An unoccupied dwelling.
Right?
Yes, sir.
And you could have gotten 15 years in prison for that alone, right?
Yes, sir, I could have.
Now, instead, you did plead to the burglary, correct?
Yes, sir, I did.
But you didn't get 15 years that you could have gotten on that burglary, right?
No, sir, I didn't.
Instead of the robbery, where you could have gotten 15 years in prison, you pled to a grand theft, right?
Yes, sir.
And the most you could get for that is 5 years, right?
Yes, sir.
That's another, you would agree that's a benefit, right?
Yes, sir, I would.
Instead of pleading to a life without parole sentence or death penalty, you pled to accessory after the fact of the capital felony, right?
Yes, sir, I did.
And the most you could have gotten on that is 30 years in prison, right?
Yes, sir.
And what did you say, you got 12?
Actually, it's a total of 15 if you include community control.
Right, but community control, you get to do it at home. You're going to be in prison for 12 years, right?
My DOC sentence is 12 years.
Right. And you get credit, how much credit is that again?
I believe it's 699 days time served.
2 years,
Vague.
10 years, right?
Yes, sir.
Then you know you get game time, so you're going to do what, about 8.5 years of the 10 that are left over?
Yes, sir.
And then you got a year of community control, which you get to do in your house, right?
Yes, sir.
And during that time, you're allowed to go to school, to work, to go grocery shopping. You're not completely locked in your house, right?
Yes, sir.
Then after that, you get to do 2 years of probation, right?
Yes, sir.
Which probation is less severe than community control, right?
I would say so.
You got a fairly good deal, not
Yes, sir.
fighting for your life, 8.5 years in DOC.
Yes, yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm going to sustain the objection.
Whatever the math is that you get game time, you know you're not going to do, you're going to do about 10 years, right?
I know at the end of the day I'm going home.
And down the road, if you happen to violate your probation, your testimony here today, you're hoping to carry some weight 8 years from now, 10 years from now, 11 years from now.
I don't understand games.
If you get out of prison, when you get out of prison in 10 years or so, and you're on community control and you mess that up, your cooperation here, in your mind, could help you out even 10 years from now.
I never thought about violating community control. So that, I guess that never crossed my mind.
Judge, you got a moment?
Yes, you may.
Ms. Kerchner, what earlier you said about your understanding of the proffer is, or understanding what you got to do today, is to be honest, right?
Yes, sir.
And the truth is predicated about what you said in the proffer, right? What you said during your proffer, the truth here has to match the proffer, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. You could lie in your proffer, but yet you're telling the truth here because it matches what you said in your proffer on January 15th, right?
Well, I didn't lie in my property, so it's not right.
Remember how many times you've lied throughout this case? You lost track. Did you
A lot.
But this time you're telling the truth.
Yes, sir.
Nothing else, John.
Okay, redirect on behalf of the state.
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Kerchner, you understand if you violate your community control and probation, you're looking at between the accessory after the fact, 30 years, burglary dwelling, 15 years, grand theft, 5 years, over 50 years to go back to prison, right?
Yes, sir.
You understand that?
Yes, sir.
Has anybody made any promises to you or even talk to you from law enforcement, state attorney's office, or the police, that anything you say or done will have any effect on any potential sentence in the future?
No, sir.
What have you been told to testify to today?
The truth.
Now, you indicated during defense counsel read to you part of your deposition on page 30, and you indicated you wanted to clarify your answer. Please, do you recall that?
Yes, sir, I do.
Can you please clarify to the jury?
There is things that are fuzzy in my memory. I was on a large amount of drugs. Anything I've told you here today is not fuzzy in my memory. I think that you've seen me tell him more than once I don't remember, or sometimes things come back to you. It's been over 2 years, but I haven't said anything that I feel like could be a lie or a misunderstanding.
When the things you've testified to today that you have seen and heard, are those things that you distinctly remember seeing and hearing?
Yes, sir, except like times and roads.
And when you were unsure, have you said that?
Yes, sir, I have.
Now, who was Larry Gelvin?
He is an ex-boyfriend of mine.
And after you broke up, was he your boyfriend prior to this defendant?
Yes, sir, he was.
Were you having issues with him after the breakup?
Yes, sir, I was.
Were you in fear of him?
Yes, sir, I was.
Is that why you indicated to the police that you indicated today that you hated him?
At that time I did.
Why did you bring his name up to the police and initially blame it on him?
I was high and I figured, I don't know, I have no idea. I was just high and I was really mad at him, and that was stupid.
And was Larry Gelvin in the car at all that day?
Larry Gelvin had nothing to do with any of this at all.
Now, after the officers eventually told you that the defendant had told them what had happened, did you eventually tell them that Mr. Bradley was the shooter?
I can't remember if I said that.
Did you have any, the drugs you were taking, did you have any prescriptions?
No, sir.
Mr. Bradley didn't have any prescriptions either, did he?
Not that I'm aware of.
The two of you were voluntarily taking those drugs, correct?
Yes, sir.
Who was driving the vehicle when you left the motel?
Brandon Bradley.
Who drove the vehicle after Deputy Hill was shot?
Brandon Bradley.
Who drove the vehicle after leaving the house? Who was driving the vehicle during the police chase when you ultimately crashed into the ditch?
Brandon Bradley.
They indicated you were on a lot of drugs during this period of time.
Yes, sir.
You also said the defendant was taking these drugs as well.
Yes, sir.
Did the defendant take so many drugs where he was physically unable to steal things out of the motel room?
No, sir, he didn't.
Was he able to take items, including furniture, carry it from the motel room down the stairs, out to the truck?
I'm not sure if he put furniture in the truck.
Okay. Was he able to carry it to the truck?
I don't know I don't know where he carried it to. To the truck. I can't remember exactly which items he took and which items I took.
Okay. But he was physically able to carry items from the motel room down the stairs to the truck.
Oh, yes, sir.
And when the hotel employees told you all that they were calling the police, was Mr. Bradley able to indicate to you that, hey, we need to get out of here?
Yes, sir, he was.
So he had the wits about him to say, I don't want to be here when the police come?
Objection, speculation.
Okay, sustained as to the form of the question.
He was able to formulate a thought to you of getting out of there before the police came because he told you we need to go, right?
Objection, Judge, speculation.
Okay, sustained.
What did he tell you when it was time to go? Was that after you were told that they were calling the police from the hotel?
Yes, sir.
And he was physically able to drive away from the hotel?
Yes, sir.
Drive down those other roads?
Yes, sir.
Didn't crash into any telephone poles driving down those roads?
Just the guy in the parking lot.
Who was in front of the vehicle?
Yes, sir.
And he had enough wits about him that when he saw the patrol car, he told you.
Okay,
Can I finish the question?
you can, but it's the first part of the question that they're objecting to. So
Yeah.
I'm going to sustain the objection, even if you finished it.
Mr. Bradley was able to tell you when you first saw the patrol car that he didn't want to go back to prison, right?
Yes, sir.
He continued telling you that after the patrol car had got behind you and tried to stop the vehicle?
I'm not sure how many times he said it.
Did he say it more than once?
I'm not sure how many times he said it.
He was able to tell you that he was going to shoot the cracker?
Yes, sir.
He was physically able to grab the firearm, right?
Yes, sir.
Physically able to point it at the deputy?
Yes, sir.
Sustained.
Can you tell the jury whether or not he was physically able to take that firearm and point it at the deputy? Was he able to do that?
Yes, sir.
Was he able to point it at her and pull the trigger?
Yes, sir, he was.
Was he physically able to point it at her, pull the trigger, and hit the target?
Yes, sir.
Madam, I have a moment.
Yes, you may.
No further questions.
Okay, recross.
Kerchner, in your deposition, you had the moment to say these exact statements that you've said here today. You responded by saying, I don't know the exact words, right?
Judge, I'm willing to object.
Okay, I'll sustain as to the form of the question.
Ms. Kerchner, we've gone over your depo many times. It's fair to say that you cannot, at least during your deposition, you were not able to tell us the exact words that Mr. Bradley said to you, correct?
Objection. Refer.
Yes, you may.
Kerchner, you can't tell us his exact words to the best of your memory. Isn't that true?
No, sir, that's not true.
It's not true?
Well, exact words as in,
What Mr. Bradley told you, the two of you were inside the car, in the moments leading up to when Deputy Phil was shot. You cannot remember his exact words.
I can't remember all of his exact words. The ones that I remember I've told you.
Earlier, you were asked whether or not you had a prescription for pills, or Mr. Bradley had a prescription for pills. Well, there was a pill bottle inside the SUV along with Jeffrey Diegas. You got that pill bottle.
Probably from Jeffrey Diegas.
You were also asked whether Mr. Bradley could make certain movements. You would agree he could be really high and still be able to move, right?
Yes, sir.
In fact, on March 6th, you were beyond high, and you were able to move, right?
Yes, sir.
You were able to move around the motel room, put things in a car, climb inside of the car, shut the door, but were you not?
Yes, sir, I was.
Mr. Bradley was very impaired as well. Right?
Yes, sir, he was.
Do you have any memory when Mr. Bradley and you were leaving the motel? Mr. Bradley almost was turning into the development. After the sirens went on from Deputy Phil's car, he almost drove into oncoming traffic. Were you aware of that in your impaired state?
I don't believe so.
When Mr. Bradley's driving into the garbage can as he was stopping, and Deputy Phil had the lights to stop.
No, sir, I don't.
Remember the SUV hitting a stop sign after he left the residence after the shooting occurred?
No, sir, I don't.
Earlier, well, the gun that Mr. Bradley had, he had the gun to protect himself and you from Mr. Galvin, right?
I'm not sure what he's protecting himself from.
Wasn't Mr. Galvin stalking you?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Galvin, and you were with Mr. Bradley at the time Mr. Galvin stalking you, right?
Yes, sir.
In fact, you had to switch hotel rooms because somehow Mr. Galvin found out where you were, right?
Yes, sir.
You didn't know how, but he did, right?
Yes, sir.
Both of you were scared and you switched hotel rooms, right?
Yes, sir.
And when asked about your time off, when you come off of probation, Mr. Brown brought up that if you violate, you get up to 30 years. You know that you get credit for the 12 that you've been sentenced to already, right?
Mr. Brown said 50 years, I believe.
30. I said 30. The accessory after the fact.
That's one charge. I have 3. It would be 50.
All right, minus 12 is 48, right?
No, it's 38.
38, I mean, thank you, even better.
Sorry.
It's not life, right?
No, sir,
It's not death, right?
No, sir.
3 days pill bottle in your car, that's the SUV. I know you say you don't know how it got in there, but you didn't break into his house to get it, right?
No, sir.
All right, thank you.
Okay, ma'am, thank you for your testimony. You're free to step down. Okay, at this time, it would be appropriate for us to break for the evening. Ask you to return at 8:30 tomorrow morning. During this recess, you must continue to abide by the rules governing your service as a juror. Specifically, do not discuss this case among yourselves or with anyone else, or allow anyone to discuss it in your presence. Do not speak to the lawyers, parties, or the witnesses about anything. You must avoid reading newspaper headlines and/or articles relating to this trial or its participants. Avoid seeing or hearing television, radio, or internet comments about this trial. Do not conduct any research yourself regarding any matters concerning this case or its participants. Okay, report to the jury assembly room at 8:30 tomorrow morning. Thank you.